Today, I had the fortunate pleasure of going to my local AMC, and I saw the brand new Avatar 3 Fire and Ash. And
I heard.
I thought it was I thought it was just listen, I feel that if you liked part 1 and you liked part 2, but you felt part 2 was like part 1, you're probably going to feel that part 3 is exactly like part 2, which is exactly like part 1. So if you liked the first two, you'll probably like three. I felt like there were some exact same beats that were retold. That was in part two. They retold it again in part three. There was a pretty big moment in part one that they rehashed it again in part three.
Mm.
We were supposed to, I was under the impression that we got the tree people in part one, we got the water Navi in part two. I thought we were going to get the fire people in part three, which he didn't. He didn't even take us to the third, to like the fire world. We stayed essentially in the water world in the third movie. So it's like we didn't really get a new adventure in this third movie, which I thought was really disappointing. This was essentially just it just picks up right after part two. I mean, all the set pieces were exactly the same pieces places in part two. So it was just like everything was like almost exactly the same, and I was so bummed about it. The I mean, just the first, second, third act were set up exactly the same too, which was really kind of a bummer. I'm not going to tell you exactly what happens in it because I don't want to spoil it because it just came out today. Now, for the audio video experience, if you guys are going to go check it out, I only saw it in IMAX 3D high frame rate, and I don't recall the frame rate switching that much in part two, but in this third iteration, this third chapter, we would get the parts where it'd be 48 frames per second. So we would get that really smooth motion, that soap opera like effect. And then all of a sudden it would cut to like 24 frames per second. Then you would notice all the 24 frame judder. And it was really jarring because it'd be like really smooth and then really jittery. And then it'd go back to really smooth. But that was one issue. Well, not really an issue. I thought it was kind of cool, the 48 frames per second stuff. Unfortunately, I don't think we're going to get that for the home release, either in 4K or 3D. Obviously, not in 3D. The 3D was equally as good or as mild as the first two movies. Still some of the best out there. I do think some of the 3D post conversions, like from Marvel and some of the other recent ones, maybe Tron, maybe slightly more effective in the 3D effect rather than having it natively shot. So for you guys out there that are 3D fans, I would still recommend you guys go see it in your biggest theater in 3D. But as far as the audio quality, after just seeing Tron Ares, well, like a month ago or so, which had the most impressive bass I've heard in an IMAX theater ever, better than Interstellar, stronger than Interstellar. In the same theater, this movie almost had no bass to it. It was like the flattest sounding movie I've heard in quite some time. And the same experience I had with the second one, kind of the same as I'm having here in the third one. Just a really flat sounding presentation. So I feel like even though James Cameron sent out those letters to theater owners to bump up your volume knob to a 7, which I guess is reference scale for cinema processors, they must have put theirs down to like -10 because it was like really quiet during the action scenes. It just didn't pick up. It just didn't have that big feel to it. It was just a really flat presentation. The only good parts that actually had some bass to it were when the whales were coming out of the water and they were talking to the Navi. That's the only time that the subwoofers kicked on and gave me any kind of LFE. Even the explosions kind of lacked any kind of kick. So as far as bass response, Fire and Ash did sound like ass. And as far as like the surround movement and stuff like that, only a couple of times where maybe a ship would fly to the back speaker or a whale splash would kick over to the back speakers. Other than that, just really everything stayed in the front stage. So I was really kind of disappointed in the overall just audio experience. Video quality looked exactly the same as the second movie. The CG looked just as good, maybe a smidge better than the second movie. There were some parts where it just looks like they're painted people. And then other times you can clearly tell they're, more CG. But I would say, a slight uptick as far as the video, the CG effects were, and the audio is. I want to say it's probably a step down from the second movie. So overall experience, just from AV standpoint, I'm gonna give it 7 for my AV experience for Avatar: Fire and Ash in IMAX 3D high frame rate. Question is for you guys: have you seen it, and what was your experience like seeing Avatar 3 at your local cinemas? And do you think it's going to be equally as unimpressive as at the theaters? Leave your comment down below. Let me know.